Happy Monday evening, everybody. I hope everyone has had a decent Monday. In fact, I hope it's better than decent. If, we're talking about these kind of mythical Mondays, I don't necessarily know how anybody's Monday is, so I'm going to wish for the best, if we're wishing at all. So I came across a story today. Stories like this annoy me. I don't usually particularly care. All things being equal, I have somewhat of a cynical distance from the things that I cover. But there are certain things that bother me because of the larger implications of those things. This was one of them. All right, let's start again. Let's do it this way. So, this is Thomas Friedman. Tom Friedman, he's a hawk. He's unapologetic. Listen to what he's saying. He's talking about the Israeli lobby here when Benjamin Netanyahu came in to speak. He writes New York Times, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, New York Times. I sure hope that Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, understands that the standing ovation he got in Congress this year was not for his politics. The ovation was bought and paid for by the Israel lobby. Now, here's the thing. What Thomas Friedman's saying here is for the most part true. I mean, after all, it is a lobby. The point of a lobby is to try to get things accomplished. And if you are AIPAC, and if you are working at the behest of the Israeli government, you're trying to get things done for the Israeli government. You'll be a bad lobby if you weren't able to do that. I think it's also, if we're being honest with ourselves, entirely true that many groups, be it the NRA, be it the health insurance lobby, meaning medical lobby, oil and gas, down the list, whatever the lobby is, even the standpoint from the oligarchs in our particular society, you call them a class, that particular tribe, all of these organizations try and push in order to pull the United States government in a particular direction that benefits and is to the best interest of them. We are not a United States in this regard. We have various interests depending upon the group to which you belong to. Some of those interests are more real than others, but nevertheless, all of these groups, all of these factions, all of these particular tribes try to pull and yank the government in a particular direction. It is what it is. It's not good or bad. When Ocasio-Cortez went through how easy it was to buy a politician, that should have made you sick to your stomach that these guys are that. But while simultaneously screaming that they're representing the interests of the American public. They are not. To add credit to that point. This idea of being bought. This is not specific to Israel. Has nothing to do with them being Jews. It has everything to do with them to be a lobby that's functioning at the behest of getting the best interests of the Israeli government, or what it perceives its best interest is, effected through the political space. How do you do that? In the United States, money is the thing, is the currency. There's a certain dogma associated with Israel, so don't misunderstand me on this. There's also foreign policy interests. They're our top dog in the region, like Saudi Arabia is our top dog in the region. There's another place that lobbies the United States in this case, dropping a lot of money. But from the standpoint of politicians, yes, money walks. Nothing to do with them being Jews. Everything to do with it being the way in which the medium of exchange in the United States government. Let's keep going. I want to add more credence to that. Just to back up that point. I want this video to be relatively quick, but I want to make a case here because I want to kind of make an argument that the argument that's being used against Omar back here is entirely disingenuous, but I want to bolster it first. This is Emily's List. With Stephanie Sherlock, she a pro-choice group, Emily's List. She's describing the role of AIPAC in scripting congressional positions for the Israeli donations, meaning she's showing the behind the scenes on how things work from the standpoint of her getting money for her political objectives. I started as a finance director and worked for candidates in the 90s as their finance director, and I would come on a congressional race. I'm a 20-something kid who almost knows nothing beyond state borders, let alone overseas, and you thought where you were going to raise money, you needed to raise to win a race. And you went to labor, you went to the choice community, and you went to the Jewish community. But before you went to the Jewish community, you had to have a conversation with the AIPAC person in your state and made it clear that you needed a paper on Israel. And so you call your friends who had already had a paper on Israel. This was designed by AIPAC, and we made that paper, and made that your paper. This was before there was any campaign manager or policy director or a field director, because you got to raise money before all of that. I have written more papers than I can imagine. I'm from Montana. I barely know where Israel was until I looked at a map. And the poor campaign manager would come in and the policy director, and I'd be like, here's your paper on Israel. This is our policy. We've sent it all over the country because it is how we raise money. It is how we raise money. You have a political system where the person who wins the race 90% of the times have raised the most cash. That means that if a person wants to run in the race in the United States, they have to raise money. They have to get that money from somewhere, and they go to various places to get the cash. But before they got the cash, they had to get, what are the talking points on this particular subject? I guarantee you it's not just Israel, by the way. Again, all of these lobbies, all of these interests that are not necessarily in the interest of the American public push and tug on the political edifice in this way, using cash as the medium to do so. And mind you, she has to get elected. How do you get elected? You gotta raise money. Here's another one. I love this one. The best Congress AIPAC can buy, Foreign Policy Journal. Notice, I just read it because I want to show the influence. Nowhere is the influence and power of the political lobby more evident than in an annual policy conference of the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, AIPAC. This year's conference takes place in Washington, D.C. on March 20 to 22nd. An event that rivals the President's annual State of the Union message. The gathering has drawn nearly 400 confirmed speakers, including Vice President Joe Biden, presidential candidate Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton, Ted Cruz, and John Kasich, who will address more than 15,000 pro-Israel Americans, including two-thirds of the current members of Congress. According to the lobby's website, the event is the largest gathering in American pro-Israel community. Among the confirmed speakers, 30 members of the U.S. Congress, 25 of whom received the 2016 contributions from pro-Israel PACs, and individuals leveraging $36,000 per recipient, $908,000 in total. From each of those speakers, AIPAC gains a public expression of high-level support of Israel. Note, the contribution figures come from OpenSecrets.org. It's not a secret. This is not something that's a mythical thing. This is something you can look up yourself. How much money has AIPAC assisted in those candidates getting? Well, here's the insane figure. Among the presidential candidates for 2015 and 2016, AIPAC generated contributions in the amount of $212,912 for Hillary Clinton and $203,000 for Ted Cruz. Marco Rubio received $132,552 and Lindsey Graham $74,200. No surprise at all that all those candidates have pledged full support to Israel. But it has nothing to do with the cash at all. Nothing at all. There's nothing illegal or morally wrong with lobbying Congress or candidate for office. In fact, it can serve as a useful purpose in educating members of candidates about the matters subject to legislation. The problem comes when lobbyists use the money to secure access or buy support for proposed bills and resolutions. AIPAC itself does not make political contributions and is in fact legally prohibited from doing so. Instead, it uses its considerable resources, $3 million annual lobbying budget, to link current and aspiring members of Congress for pro-Israel donors. AIPAC projection of invincibility encourages political candidates and office holders to accept pro-Israel contributions or risk seeing those funds go to their opponents. For example, we don't have to get into that. The pro-AIPAC lobby is probably the strongest, best organized, and most efficient lobby network in Washington, D.C. For the 2015-2016 election cycle, the pro-Israel lobby has already dispensed $4,255,136 in contributions. Yes, an organization that is a Jewish lobby find ways to make their lobbying effective, and they realize that making their lobbying effective through cash in the United States is the way to go about doing their lobby. They connect people to money. It's all about the Benjamins. Yes, that is true. And one last point. Well, I don't have to do a last point. So, the reason I'm showing you this is because I kind of want to make the point that, yes, people who are being lobbied in the various the various organizations in Washington that go about the lobbying, money is involved in the process. Even if it's not a direct payoff, money is involved in the process. It is understood that money is involved in the process. And the reason why the behaviors take place in Washington is often because money is involved in the process. It pulls the government in particular directions that go against the interests of the American public. Ilhan Omar, new congressional representative, Muslim, you see she's wearing a hijab, gets into you could say steps on a landmine. This kind of trigger point in DC. This takes place. She responds to a tweet. Let me see where it starts. Where is it? I have all of these screens open, I'm sorry. No. Alright. Right here. So early on, Glenn Greenwald tweeted this. GOP leader Kevin McCarthy threatens punishment to Ilhan and Rashid over criticisms of Israel. It's stunning how much time the United States political leaders spend fending off attacks from foreign national, even if it means attacking free speech and American rights. Well, the United States Senate, that's been juiced up with the cash and political influence of AIPAC, which is, mind you, an Israeli lobby. You could say a Jewish lobby, but that's somewhat of a conflation between the interests of the two things. There is a difference between being a Jew and being Israeli. I'm sorry. And in doing so, she responded to this. She responded to Glenn Greenwald. And this is what drew the ire. So when he made the point about this, her response was, it's all about the Benjamins, baby. Just so we're clear. GOP leader Kevin McCarthy threatens punishment for Ilhan and Rashid over their criticism of Israel. Think about that. You're going after somebody for criticism of a foreign government. It's not even your own government. They're attacking free speech in America at the behest of the Israeli government, for the Israeli government. Do you honestly believe that they're going to cripple free speech for the American public? They're doing it for another government. It's an amazing thing. Threatens punishment for Ilhan Nutella over criticism of Israel. It is stunning how much time U.S. political leaders spend defending a foreign nation, even if it means attacking free speech and American rights. Ilhan says it's all about the Benjamins, baby. Now, later on, someone says, we'll love to know why Ilhan thinks paying American politicians to be pro-Israel. I think I can guess. Bad form, Congresswoman. That's the second anti-Semitic trope you've tweeted. And she said AIPAC. And she's right. Because I've just shown you that she was right. People like Friedman has even said as much. And you can look at opensecrets.org and see how much money is shoved into the pockets of people in Washington. And it gives you a clue on why they defend Israel so vigorously and are willing to throw anybody under the bus for even the most mild criticisms. They're saying that this is racist. Her pointing out something that's absolutely, completely flat fact true as being somehow anti-Semitic, making this argument that there's some kind of money-changing trope that goes along with Israeli lobby stuff, as if the NRA, the healthcare industry, the private prisons, or for that matter, just the rich who want the lower taxes at the expense of everyone else. All of these have interests, and all of these interests are seen to using cash, but somehow calling it out for Israel is somehow anti-Semitic. Nonsense. Nonsense. This gets no leeway with me at all, especially when you can look it up and see the reality of events. Her point in this is these groups, these lobbyists, have too much of an outsized influence in interacting or influencing American political affairs. And it needs to stop. Whether that's AIPAC, whether that's the NRA, whether that's oil and gas, whether that's the health insurance industry, whether that's Saudis, pick your poison. All of these groups should not have an outsized influence. For fuck's sake, in the Senate, they are pushing forth a bill that would criminalize free speech for Israel. They're not doing it for us. But this is kind of my point. What she's saying here is flat fact true. It's like, and by the way, the Democratic Party chastised her for this. They chastised her for this. Look at this. The Democratic Party comes out and puts this. Democratic leadership statement on anti-Semitic comments of Congresswoman Ilhan Omar. They weren't anti-Semitic. They were true. They were entirely and completely true. And you spineless, disingenuous cowards throw this woman under the bus. Speaker Nancy Pelosi, Majority Leader Steny Hoyer, etc. Essentially, the cast of characters That's the Democratic issued this joint statement condemning anti-Semitic comments made over Twitter by Congresswoman Omar and smear her as making anti-Semitic comments when what she was said was flat fact true. All of these bought congressmen kind of make her point. It's all about the Benjamin's baby. And yeah, there is this kind of groupthink of to some degree that anything that happens, you can smear the person as anti-Semitic. God, why don't blacks have that? Any criticism of me, I'm just going to call you racist. Anti-Semitism must be called out, confronted, and condemned whenever it's encountered without exception. Yes, I agree with that. We are and will always be strong supporters of Israel and Congress because we understand that our support is based on shared values and strategic interests. And cash. And cash. Individuals are the people who get elected and hold office. Individuals who need large amounts of cash in order to get elected. They get that from all and various interests. Let's be honest. Legitimate criticism of Israel's policies are protected by the values of free speech and democratic debate. Well, you're trying to criminalize that. You're trying to criminalize that. So, let's put that in quotes. But Congresswoman Omar's use of an anti-Semitic trope and presidential accusations about Israel supporters is deeply offensive. It wasn't a trope. It was true. It's just the way Washington works. It has nothing to do with them being Jews. It has everything to do with them being a government that's trying to influence the government of the United States. This is weak and disgusting. This is utterly, entirely weak and disgusting. You ask why people don't like Democrats? Stuff like this. These guys have screamed identity. Oh, we love the fact that all of these women and these women of color are coming into Congress. But shut up about things that you may care about. Meaning we want the fact that you're colored. We don't like the fact that you may have a different political opinion that is informed by the fact that you're colored. We want the soda without having the calories. We want, we want to eat well, but we don't really want, to eat well. We want to be able to eat pizza and not get fat. I guess my point is you want a quantity of something, but the reality is the quantity of the thing that you want has certain political opinions that are offensive to what is considered the bipartisan norm in regards to its perspective of Israel. What she was saying was true. There's no hint of anti-Semitism in it at all. And I got to be honest. Calling something continuously anti-Semitic or anti-woman, it's like you didn't support Hillary Clinton, so you're sexist. And this woman is somehow racist or anti-Semitic for calling a spade a spade. Money is the currency that goes through Congress. By the way, criticizing AIPAC is not the same thing as criticizing Jews. There's a difference in those quantities. Just saying. Bourgeois have been in control. The bourgeois have been in control since the days of child labor. Their pragmatism is an outright lie. Socialism now. Thing of the matter is, it's last over. That's going beyond the thing. Lefties should support her, and for the most part, lefties have supported her. This idea that they're condemning her. By the way, she came out and apologized. She apologized while simultaneously essentially saying, I'm not backstepping on what I said, but I understand that some people feel some kind of way about it. Let's show her apology, and I'll end this video here because this video has gone far, far too long. I didn't want it to go this long. I wanted it to be short and to the point. By the same token, I wanted to make my argument. So she comes out, anti-Semitism is real, and I'm grateful for Jewish allies and colleagues who are educating me on a painful history of anti-Semitic tropes. Anti-Semitism is real, as somewhat of a flat fact. In this particular case of what took place in this tweet were a bunch of disingenuous people who were using some to shame and cow a Muslim member of Congress, essentially put her in her place early on. We're going to put that Muslim woman in her place early on, so later on she's not going to be able to hold her shape on issues of criticism of Israel, something that needs to take place, that needs to be part of the debate. I mean, for fuck's sake, you're occupying somebody else's territory, brutally repressing another country. Anti-Semitism is real, and I'm grateful for Jewish allies and colleagues who are educating me on this painful history of the anti-Semitic tropes. My intention is never to offend my constituents or Jewish Americans as a whole. We have to always be willing to step back and think through criticism, just as I expect people to hear me and when others attack me for my identity. This is why I unequivocally apologize. At the same time, I reaffirm the problematic role of lobbyists in our politics, whether it be AIPAC, the NRA, the fossil fuel industry. It's gone on too long. We must be willing to address it. Yes, she's absolutely and entirely right. those squeamish, weak, feckless, squishy, disingenuous cowards, Democrats that are bought, that don't want to say anything about it. Yeah, this bugged the shit out of me because it was like every Democrat that said something about it was just one more disingenuous hack after the next. All of them know that what she said was absolutely true, and all of them complain about it. They're only not anti-Semitic when accepting Jewish money. This is how you do this. You have to call this shit out for what it is. Yeah, it's nonsense. 90% of anti-Semitism charges in mainstream media aren't real. Yes, that's true. It is the more overused terms in the English language tied with conspiracy theory. From here on out, anybody who criticizes me, I'm just going to say you're racist. I mean, for all intents and purposes, that's what takes place. And then there's groupthink, along with other Democrats who are like, we must condemn anti-Semitism, even when it's not real. Even when it's not anti-Semitism. We're going to put this Muslim woman in her place. The fact that this woman is black, if you're going to say you want diversity in your politics, then you're going to get diversity in your politics. And those people who are informed of a different upbringing are going to have different political opinions and objectives and things they want to accomplish. And the people who are putting them in that office are doing so for different political reasons, knowing that those people have something inside of them that's different, informed by their experience. It would be strange for her to be rah-rah on Israel's brutal occupation of another territory, seeing her own cultural background. All right, I'm going to end this. I just thought this was nonsense. All right, I'll end this here. I don't want to give this one bit of daylight, but I give it one bit of daylight because I realized that if you don't say anything about it, the only voices that you have in the room on this are the people who are screaming bloody murder that the woman is somehow a Jew hater just because she's pointing out the fact that the Jewish lobby, or AIPAC in this case, the Israeli lobby, has an outlier impact on U.S. politics. It has nothing to do with it being Jews. It has everything to do with them being... Or you can say it does, but just like it does for the same point of, the Saudis or the NRA or the lobbies, any particular group that's lobbying for a particular tribe has the interest of that tribe. Her point is, that needs to stop. It was easily understood by anyone who's being honest looking at what she was saying. So, I end this here. All right, if you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all. And